Houston, our instruments are showing that we have a incoming message from deep space. Repeat, Houston, we have an incoming message from deep space. Houston, we will begin playing message now. Houston, we're going to try and translate that up here. Hold for translation. Translation complete. We'll begin playing message now.
Hey, it's me, Melissa.
What do you do when the aliens invade? Take a shot of MK Ultra and watch Melissa Jade. Put on your tinfoil hat and tune right in. We got that crime spree, flat earth theories, government conspiracies, a complex Mandela effects, unidentified objects, a mind expanding, fake moon landing, what it all bends understanding. It's me, Melissa. It's me, Melissa. Aliens is on the sun or in Area 51. Time travels, unravels, haunted castles, cops are baffled, potential experimental thoughts that make you transcendental. It's me, Melissa. It's me, Melissa. Crime sprees, flat earth theories, government conspiracies, complex Mandela effects, unidentified objects of mind expanding, fake moon landing, what it all bends understanding. It's me, Melissa. It's me, Melissa.
Hey guys, how are you? Hey Meatfoot, hey Lucia, Booberry, Baseball Mom, Just Because, Lawnmower Man, K-Star, Glunjamin, Nasa, Judge and Jury, Sleuth and Tater Tot, K-Star, Wandering Sub, Trippy Dead, Spill Beans, Wilhelm Meister, Wolfie. How are you guys? Happy Tuesday. Okay, so I kind of did Hey Shaq. I just kind of want to go over and reiterate what we went through last night as far as the DoorDash and a couple of other things in the affidavit. So, hello, Gigi. Let me pull up the screen recording from the DoorDash. And I think a few people have things confused as far as the DoorDash. So, again, there was only two options on a Saturday night around 2:30 a.m. for DoorDash orders to be delivered to the Moscow house. The two options were only Jack in the Box and Taco Bell. You can get it confused in the app. Like some things may show available, but when you actually click onto it, you'll see that it's actually closed and the delivery hours aren't there. So if Xana did indeed receive a DoorDash order at that time, it would have only come from one of these two places. And I'm going to pull it up again. Get the screen recording up. DoorDash, here we are. Okay. And then, ooh, look, I saw this other photo that was posted of another perspective Dylan would see. Okay. Let's see this. DoorDash. Well, they very well may have went to Taco Bell or ordered from Taco Bell. It's not clear. Like, we see that Jack in the Box sitting on the kitchen sink, but it's not clear if it really is from that night. Also, it's opened. Let me see here. This. Like, the Starbucks cup is not included in the order. That's a completely separate order. But we aren't sure that this is from that night. I mean, it looks like it would be because, one, it's a DoorDash order for Xana. And two, it's one of the two options that were opened at that time. But there's no guarantee that that's actually the order. And if it is, and we went through it last night, let's say that Bryan did indeed send the order, why would it be open? On moving to his right exit. This photo is actually a bit creepy, I'm not going to lie, because it was one of those 360 photos. So, like, as you moved your phone, it moved the perspective, but obviously I couldn't take a screenshot of that. But see, I struggle with the way that Dylan's door opens for him not being able to see her. I think he did see her. I think it's really highly unlikely that he would not have seen her. If there was any type of illumination in her room, any type of light whatsoever, even if it was dark, I mean, is there a chance he didn't see her? Sure, but I struggle with that. Yeah, he did want to go out to the kitchen. They look like they're lazy. Pans and sink didn't put. Yeah, it was a house of college students, you know? Like, it's not surprising. So, okay, K-Star. Have a great day. MJ, Wolfie, and I are stuck on top chat, so please keep it. Okay, Meatfoot. Hi, Amanda Meow. You struggle with that too, Mickey? You should have seen my college house. Yeah. Okay. All right, so let me show you the screen recording again. So if anybody wasn't here last night, Wolfie took this screen recording. It was 2:30 in Moscow, 2:30 a.m. in Moscow, when she took this screen recording on a Saturday night. So we tried to parallel exactly the same situation from the night of the murders when we took this screen recording. Because obviously checking how long the DoorDash delivery would be on a Tuesday night at 8 p.m. in Moscow is not going to be the same, because that's not when the murders occurred. His heart is pounding. Ethan and Xana could have been a surprise. That's what I thought, Glenjamin. I think Ethan and Xana were unplanned. But we're going to go a little bit more into the affidavit after the DoorDash. Why can't anyone get off Top Chat? That's strange. It must be a glitch, guys. It is Amanda Meow, right? It is. So, again, there are other factors which may have caused the delivery time to be longer the night of the murders. I know that there was a game going on. So this is just an average. It's an average guesstimate. But as you can see in this recording, let me slow down. Playback quality. Okay. So there was only two options available: Jack in the Box and Taco Bell. You could see Walgreens, Florals, Nom Noms, Pets Are People, Bed Bath & Beyond, Chipotle, Starbucks. It continues to go on. But none of those options were available to get delivered at 2:30. So when you click on Jack in the Box, as you can see here, Jack in the Box and Taco Bell, the only two options that are delivery, are in the expanded delivery range, meaning it is a little bit farther than the normal delivery would go. So I do believe you get an additional charge because of that. And it is also another factor of why the delivery time may have been a little bit longer, because I know a lot of people said, even if the last order is 2:45, She received the DoorDash around 4 a.m. There's no way it would take that long. So that was the point of these screen recordings, and to do this little research is to show that it very well could have taken that long. So this is 2:30 a.m. in Moscow. Jack in the Box, expanded delivery range, 56-minute delivery time. 56 minutes, okay? It shows the address, 310 Northeast Stadium Way, and it shows the DoorDash orders on Saturday, 4:10 a.m. to 2:45, meaning the last possible time you could place an order is going to be 2:45 a.m. So then when you go back, your other option is Taco Bell. Taco Bell and Jack in the Box are literally directly across the street from one another. Let me show you this map. If you see this map right here, and I know it's like hard to see because it's zoomed out, you have the 4 clusters of the yellow beacons. One on one side is Jack in the Box. On the opposite side of the street is Taco Bell. So these are legit directly across the street from each other. But it kind of helps because just no matter which one she ordered from, they're both coming from the same exact area and would take the same amount of time. So you see for Taco Bell, the estimated delivery is 67 minutes at 2:30 a.m. on a Saturday night in Moscow. 67 minutes. So if this order was placed right at the end, the cutoff, it is totally plausible that she did not receive it to almost 4 a.m. Again, you see the 425 Northeast Stadium Way. You see the DoorDash orders Saturday, 7 a.m. to 2:45 a.m. So just like Jack in the Box, Taco Bell has the identical same hours for DoorDash. Are you guys talking about the live chat issues? Hey, Leo girl. Hi, Paul R. And hello to the dolphin. No, you're good, nice. Okay, so then again, as you can see, you scroll down and you look at any of the other options for 2:30 a.m. in Moscow, there's no options. It had to be either Jack in the Box or Taco Bell. Now, what this shows is 7 minutes later, Wolfie took another screen recording. And even though it says 2:45 a.m. is the cutoff, it already stopped at 2:38 a.m., I believe this was. So as you can see right here, it says unavailable, delivery unavailable. So even though the cutoff is 2:45, at 2:38 a.m., delivery already cut off. So we're not sure if this was just this night in particular that we did the research, or is there a chance that the night of the murders, it also cut off a few minutes earlier? Why is this relevant? It's relevant because we're trying to speculate whether or not Bryan was the one who sent the DoorDash, and if he did, what time would he sent it? Would it have been reasonable for it to arrive at almost 4 a.m. like we know it did as per the affidavit? Things like that. Hi, Raydeen. So for Jack in the Box at 2:38 a.m., delivery became unavailable. So they cut it off a few minutes earlier. Not sure if it's because they didn't have drivers or what. When you click onto Taco Bell, again, this is 2:38 a.m. So this is only 7 minutes after we took the first screen recording. Delivery became unavailable. It closed a little bit earlier. Definitely, Glunjamin, yeah. Hey, Tiffany. We didn't go to Taco Bell. 8 minutes. Okay, thanks, Wolfie. 8 minutes. So it may have been a variable the night also of the murders of the 13th, where it didn't end at 2:45 versus possibly 10 minutes earlier. Okay, so thank you. So 2:31 a.m. is when the first screen recording was taken, and then 2:39. Wolfie saying 4:31 and 4:39 because that was the time zone that she lives in. But it was 2:31 and 2:39. So 2:31, it was still available to order DoorDash, but by 2:39, it already closed out. Now, what this shows you is the two options that you have when you do order from DoorDash. You have two options. You have an option to do a hand it to me, and you have an option to leave it at my door. For anybody who's not familiar with DoorDash, that means that you either want the delivery guy to come to the door and physically hand you the food, or you have the option to leave it at the door. And in standard practice, when they leave it at the door, they will put it on the doorstep, and then they will alert you, usually via a text with a picture, letting you know that your food arrived, and it's a picture of the food on the doorstep. But as you can see right below, it also has drop-off instructions, meaning you can specify, I want you to leave the food in the back sliding door, or I want you to knock on the front, ground level door. And I'm using the Moscow house as an example. So if we're speculating and theorizing that Bryan indeed sent the DoorDash, is it possible that he left specific drop-off instructions, letting the driver know to leave it on? Was he trying to cause a distraction? Was he trying to get, let's say, Xana, since it's her name used, let's speculate he only thought Xana, hi ET lady, let's speculate that he only thought Xana and Maddie were home. Even though it would have been Bethany and Dylan too, I think people just don't usually use them because they are survivors, right? He didn't attack them. But let's say Maddie was the target, okay? And we're just spitballing here. If Maddie was the target, that would make a little bit more sense why he would choose Xana's name to deliver the DoorDash to. What if he was trying to get Xana to answer the door for this DoorDash so he could slide in and go upstairs and use it as a distraction? Now, I don't know if that's what happened. I'm just speculating. But you have very specific instructions. He could have asked, go to the back sliding door and knock on the door. Go to this, or leave it here. Did he possibly intercept the DoorDash? Did he advise that he wanted to leave it at the doorstep and that the specific instructions is, just leave it there and text this number when it's here? And then did Bryan potentially pick up the DoorDash and then disguise himself as the delivery person? I don't know. These are all the questions that we have. But, just wanted to reiterate from last night that these are the only two options that they could have ordered from. Because even if another one had like a 1 a.m. cutoff time, it wouldn't have delivered at almost 4 a.m. That's what everyone's saying, Crichton. I don't know what's going on. How hard it would be to get a copy of that DoorDash receipt and how it was paid for. Not hard at all. Everything with these apps, DoorDash, Uber, Lyft, things like that are very well monitored. Meaning even the entire, let's say Bryan did order it through a burner phone or a burner account. He also would have been able to monitor where exactly the driver was at all times. Because with DoorDash, they do keep you notified. Your driver just arrived at the restaurant and it just picked up your order. Your driver is now en route to your location. So he would have been getting alerts letting him know exactly where the driver was at all times, which makes you curious because right after 2:45 a.m., which was the cutoff, is when Bryan shut his phone off and left his apartment. So it kind of does parallel the DoorDash a lot. Same thing with him arriving at 3:29 a.m., yet he waited. It doesn't make sense that he waited. It doesn't make sense because you are now allowing potential eyewitnesses to see your car at the scene of the crime for 30 additional minutes. Why would you do that? Unless he was waiting for something. Unless he was waiting for the DoorDash driver. Because naturally, if he wasn't expecting that DoorDash driver, when he saw a vehicle approach the house and now you see activity, now you see that someone, at least one, was awake. Potentially more people in that house was awake. That should have spooked him. But instead, he went in at that same exact time. Right, Glungeman. Is it possible that he was kind of like circling the back and the front of the house? Because anybody who's ordered food before, you'll know, even though you may specifically say, hey, use this door or do this, a lot of times they may not follow the instructions perfectly. We had people in here last night saying that I always ask them to deliver it here, and they never do. So was he kind of bouncing around from the front to the back, from the front to the back, trying to see, is the driver there yet? Because he can't miss it. If that was his option, if that was his opportunity, what? Well, I don't know, Mary P. Apparently nobody's getting notifications, and it's locked. Like, it won't let you use live chat, only top chat options. Yeah, Fletch. Okay. Can you guys, okay, so that's what I was saying. So as far as Baseball Mom who asked, is it easily accessible? Yes. Everything with this app is monitored very, very closely. So meaning it will have all of the information from what account the food was ordered from, what the payment method is. Hey, headphones. What the payment method is. It will track the driver, the delivery driver's exact movements. It'll be alerted, like I said, once they arrive at the restaurant, and then once they arrive to the residence, and then once the food is delivered. But the problem is did Bryan potentially use a burner account? Meaning, okay, I don't have a DoorDash account, but let's just say I wanted to create one right now. When it asks me for my name, I don't have to put in my actual information. I could put in Wolfie Headphones. You know, don't ask. I just looked at two names in the chat. My name's Wolfie Headphones. It's not like DoorDash is going to go through a verification process to make sure, are you Wolfie Headphones? You know what I mean? And then when it comes time for payment method, you don't necessarily have to put in your debit card or credit card. You can use a Visa prepaid gift card, or let's say they ordered from Jack in the Box or Taco Bell, because those were the only two options. They could have used the Jack in the Box or Taco Bell gift card. All that this app cares is that the food is paid for. That's it. And so if Bryan did indeed send the DoorDash, I do not expect it or anticipate it from being from his own account. It would be most likely from a cell phone that's a burner phone that's not going to be traced back to him, and from a throwaway DoorDash account, either making the order through a guest or an account that isn't legit. Yeah, great grandma. And that's what's so weird is just the high risk of this crime. Just such a high risk. Now, I just struggle. Yeah, I did see it, Dr. Lipschitz. Let me go through it for anybody who may not have seen it. I'm going to tell you guys right off the bat right now, though, I don't put much credibility into it. We've talked about this many times on my channel. I used to think that if a news article published something, it makes it fact. And I've really learned the last 2 years that that's not the case. Just because a news article publishes it doesn't mean it's legitimate. I will read it for you guys, though, but I really don't put much weight into it. Okay. Because I see this on People magazine or People, whatever it is. So it shows accused Idaho killer Bryan Kohberger repeatedly messaged one of the victims on Instagram. Source. He was persistent, an investigative source on the case tells People. So it says 2 weeks before the slayings of 4 University of Idaho students last November, the man now accused of killing them sent a series of messages to one of the victims on Instagram. An investigator familiar with the case tells People. Now, have you guys ever heard of it's like a form of false advertising where you may automatically assume that an investigator familiar with the case tells People means that it's an investigator who could potentially be working on the case. Nah, they actually get away, like advertisers and things. I studied it in college. There is a way that they get away with the way that they word things. I know that was a weird sentence I just said, but so basically what that sentence legally could mean is that it is an investigator who has heard or looked into it, the case. Therefore, it is an investigator who is familiar with the case, just like I am someone who is familiar with the case. I can label myself a true crime investigator, right? I have a channel. I discuss these cases. I am an investigator. So I can be considered the source because I am familiar with the case. You see what I'm saying? So who is this source? Who is this source, number one? And how could they possibly know that? Number two. Now, when I state this, I'm not saying that it's not possible. I'm just saying that don't put too much weight into it. That's what I'm thinking, Jeanette. Well, that's not what I'm thinking versus that's what it looks like currently. That's what makes more sense than him waiting outside the houses for 30 minutes until finally an unfamiliar vehicle, which he doesn't necessarily know is DoorDash unless it has like the DoorDash illuminating sign in the windshield, which not all drivers have. But it should have spooked him. Yet that is the exact time he decided to make entry. Exactly, Jeanette. Exactly. So let's say that Bryan, hold on. Let me finish this real quick. So it says in late October, an account that authorities believe belonged to Bryan Kohberger sent a greeting to one of the female victims. When he didn't get a reply, he sent several more messages to her. He slid into one of the girl's DMs several times, but she didn't respond. Basically, it was just him saying, "Hey, how are you?" But he did it again and again. Now, if he indeed sent messages to one of the victims, now it says one of the female victims. Well, are you considering Dylan and Bethany a victim in this circumstance? Or is that Kaylee, Maddie, or Xana? But let's say it's Kaylee, Maddie, or Xana. Well, the only two people who would know is the people whose phones were messaging, right? Bryan or one of those three girls. How would this source know that? You know what I'm saying? How would they gain this information? Of course, could the families have gotten into one of them account? But my point is, I do not put much credibility into this at all. Possibly Dr. Lipschitz. And it's possible this might be legit, but I don't take that as fact. Hey, Akasha. But I wanted to circle back to Jeanette, who said, the main question is, why would you want to enter when you know someone is awake and delivery guy might see? That's the exact point. And yeah, for anybody who doesn't know, YouTube is having issues right now. Apple users are stuck in top chat. It's not letting you go to live chat. Also, the notifications are not going out, so people can't get notified that you're live. I don't know what's going on, but I'm sure they're gonna fix it. But again, Dr. Lipschitz, and I'm playing devil's advocate here, I have seen myself where one source will report it, and then all the other news sources just follow, referring back to this article. So it doesn't even mean much to me that numerous people are reporting it. I want to figure out the source. Oh, I have to talk to you about that, Wolfie, too, by the way. I forgot about that. Hey, Pink. Ew, BK's that guy. I hate that ish. Listen, people, if you slide into someone's DMs, whoop, I lost it. Slide into someone's DMs and they don't reply. Maybe try a second time if they still, right? They're not into you, bro. Wolfie. Wouldn't that align with Kaylee? Dad talking about someone had called her 27 times and Kaylee just goes to the guy? Maybe. I don't know. Maybe. About trivia, Wolfie. About trivia. How many puzzles did we have left from last week? Hi, Tess. For the last 5 minutes. Oh, no. Hi, Jacqueline. I mean, I just get weary of running with things. Like, I've learned my lesson with like taking news articles as fact. I really wait until law enforcement verifies it before I go with it. You know what I mean? But circling back to what Jeanette said, she said the main question is, why would you want to enter when you know someone is awake and the delivery guy might see the car? And that's the entire point. When me and Wolfie were up here last night and we're discussing the possible theory of Bryan sending the DoorDash, we're not saying, yeah, this is what happened. The only thing that we can do is take the arrest affidavit, take the facts that we know, and then, sorry, my alarm's going off, and then try our best to speculate based on those facts or theorize based on those facts. So when you are looking at the facts presented to us, we do know DoorDash cuts off at 2:45. There is only two options for DoorDash: Taco Bell, Jack in the Box, right across the street from one another. An average hour wait time for both. We do know right after 2:45 a.m. is when Bryan shuts his phone off and he leaves and he heads out. We do know that Bryan arrives at 3:29 a.m. and he doesn't make entry into the home right away. He waits for 30 minutes. And it is only after that the DoorDash arrives that Bryan makes entry into the home. Now, when we take those facts, right? Those are facts. When we take that and we try to look at theories, it makes much more sense that Bryan was anticipating the DoorDash versus he wasn't. Because if we try to go down the theory of he wasn't anticipating the DoorDash. Well, let's start with that. That means it just happened to be coincidental that the time that Bryan left his apartment and Bryan got there and he waited. We don't know why he would wait. Was he amping himself up? Was he eyeing the area, making sure that there was no witnesses, checking the activity of the house? Were lights going on and off, right? But that poses a very big risk, guys, because that is putting your car at the place of the scene of a crime for longer than necessary. Would Bryan do that? Now, listen, he's made a lot of mistakes. So, yeah, it's possible he would have. But again, we're playing devil's advocate here and going with the theories. That would increase the risk of Bryan being seen. Hey, Tia. 6 will be okay. That would increase the risk of Bryan being seen at the time and the place. Now, let's say he was amping himself up, right? He was amping himself up. He was trying to get the balls to actually make entry. And then all of a sudden, an unknown vehicle pulls up. The vehicle pulls up, goes to the door. Someone potentially answers the door, or at least eventually answers the door if it was left on the stoop or whatever. Don't you think that would have spooked Bryan, right? He was sitting out there for 30 minutes. Now all of a sudden there's activity. But Bryan decides that's the moment he's going to gain entry. Seems like a very, very high risk, even though everything about this case is high risk. Now, let's go with the other theory that Bryan anticipated the DoorDash. It makes more sense. I'm not saying it's what happens. I'm just saying it does make a bit more sense, but there's still holes in that theory. So if Bryan sent the DoorDash, it would make sense that right after the cutoff time, he shut his phone off, and that is when he is seen leaving the apartments. Now, he arrives at 3:29 because obviously you're going to arrive a little bit earlier, but Bryan would be able to track the exact whereabouts of the delivery driver. It would be letting Bryan know once the driver arrived at the restaurant. It would be letting Bryan know once the driver was en route. So Bryan, you're seeing him do the 3-point turns and kind of circling around, possibly because he didn't want to miss the delivery guy coming. Was he going to the front or the back? You could instruct them to do something. Doesn't mean that they're necessarily going to do it. Oh, thanks, Tia. Thanks so much. So the delivery driver comes up. Bryan anticipates, and that is his moment to gain entry. Now, it is unclear whether he was trying to use it as a distraction. Hey, knock on this door, call this number, and he gains entry from the back. Did he intercept the DoorDash and posed as the delivery person himself? It's unclear. But it would definitely account and make more sense why he waited for 30 minutes and would run that risk of being seen, more potential eyewitnesses that could put his car himself at the scene of the crime. Hey, Texas Tiffany. Right, Ray Dean. You're not going to, listen, you're not going to run that risk. It may say that, hey, it's going to be another 30 minutes. What do you think? He's going to arrive at 30 minutes? No, I'm going to arrive a little bit earlier because he's not going to miss his opportunity to go in. It's hard because then I do struggle with that also, because then I think, all right, was he using it as a distract? Everything happened at once. That's the hard part. Everything happened around 4 a.m. Yet there's a very big difference between 3:55 a.m. and 4:05 a.m. Now, they know the exact times, but the affidavit does not clarify. I do know one news article did state that the DoorDash arrived shortly before 4 a.m., but that's not what the affidavit says. So I can't put too much weight into that, but that would make a little bit more sense because Dylan stated what she heard was Kaylee playing with Murphy upstairs. I believe that was already Bryan upstairs in the act of killing Kaylee and Maddie and Murphy barking. So I just don't understand how the exact time that the DoorDash arrived is the exact time Bryan he made entry. Why would he choose Xana's name? Unless he did not anticipate Ethan and Kaylee being there. Even if he stalked them, that was a brand new car Kaylee had. So even if he saw her car in the driveway, would he know that was Kaylee's car? Because Kaylee was staying the weekend to show Maddie her new car. Hey, Sofla Mama. So would he necessarily even known that was Kaylee inside? Now, I don't know. So if anybody does know the answer in the chat, was Ethan's Jeep there the night prior, or was it there because of his brother allegedly coming the morning of? We've talked about that, Radine, like a little spy cam. And hi, Lucy and Milo. Could he not have entered in-house earlier? That night, Lucy and Milo, are you referring to? That's possible too, Tiffany. Yes. On the screen, this was just an article that's stating that Bryan DM'd one of the female victims multiple times. But again, it's not clarifying what source that is. It's saying an investigator familiar with the case. I'm telling you guys, they do word things where legally they are covered. Hi, LFT. And that doesn't necessarily mean it's an investigator working in the case versus an investigator who's familiar with the case. And there is a wide range of people who can be considered investigators. It does not necessarily mean that this is factual information. Lucy and Milo, between all the surveillance and the phone pings and whatnot, I have to believe that they have most likely his whereabouts from the hours prior and the hours after the murders. And I feel like if he was, they would have known about it. I mean, it's possible that would come out. LFT said, are you saying if he did the order, he was then banking on one of the girls answering the door, even though they didn't make the order? Okay, LFT. So with the theory, it is still unclear how exactly he would have went about it. But we do know that there's two options, LFT. You have the option for hand-to-hand delivery or to leave it at the doorstep. There's also an option where you have specific delivery instructions. So he could have been using it as a decoy. He could have been using it as a distraction. He could have instructed this delivery driver to knock on the ground floor, door, while he gained entry from the back of the house, possibly. Or he could have instructed the DoorDash delivery to leave the food on the backsliding doorsteps. Then he could have intercepted the food and posed himself as the delivery guy. Now, we know in the circumstances we live in, right? If a DoorDash delivery driver knocks on my door and I know I didn't order it, that's shady. But we're talking about a house full of 6 college students. Is it so strange that even though you may not have ordered food, that someone else in the house very well may have ordered food? Is that what Dylan heard when she heard what she perceived to be Kaylee saying, someone's here? Could that have been someone knocking on the door as the DoorDash delivery guy? And she's saying someone's here because she's anticipating whoever ordered the DoorDash to get up and go get it. They would know that, ET lady. No, Judy, but it also causes reasonable doubt because now we have another person at the scene of the crime at the time of the murders. That helps the defense, right? Even though we could say, no, it wasn't the DoorDash, but it doesn't matter. You are now putting another person at the scene of the crime at the time of the murders. The defense is going to use that. Right, SRB. And you can send other people food. If Amanda wanted to DoorDash me food right now, she would put my name on it. I'm not saying that this is what happened. All we could do is take the affidavit, and they never specified that Xana ordered the food. They only, sorry, let me take off my bracelets. They only specified that Xana received the food, okay? And it is not in the same paragraph as a forensic download of Xana's phone showed that she was most likely awake and scrolling through TikTok at 4:13 a.m., I believe. If they received that information through Xana's phone, wouldn't it have been included in the same paragraph? Yet it states that they found out about the DoorDash order after the driver came forward and told them. Well, wouldn't they have had that information if Xana was the one who placed it through her own phone? Yet they found out through the delivery guy, which would make sense if the order wasn't placed from her phone. Let me pull up the affidavit. Because there's something else I want to hear your guys' feedback on. That's what I was saying, Jeanette. Yes, okay. Sorry. So even if the Jeep was there, I like the way you think, Jeanette. Even if the Jeep was there, I kept saying to you guys, did that necessarily mean that Ethan was there? Because they all lived so close to each other. Is it plausible that Ethan's Jeep would have been there because he met up with Xana earlier in the night, right? But then they go out drinking, they go out to a party. Ethan wouldn't have drove his Jeep back. He most likely would have come back the next day to retrieve it. Do you think the pings would have been thrown out? Oh, okay, we'll see. Hold on. Oh, okay. All right. I want to hear. Okay. I want to talk to you guys about this. I want to get the affidavit up. Okay. Also, I just wanted to clarify something about last night because in the comment section, one of the girls who was here last night, I guess was misunderstanding what I don't know if she was misunderstanding what I was stating, but on the case sheet, he says, the part at the beginning where she hears Kaylee say that there's someone here, I think he entered off the 3rd floor balcony. Let's say Kaylee saw him walk past Maddie's window at the... Oh, that's interesting on the case, Jeannie F. Thanks, Wolfie. That's interesting. See, I never thought he entered off the balcony, but it's possible. But then why would he go downstairs? Okay, LFT. You see, Wolfie? I told you. I'm still curious about him asking if anyone else has been arrested. That would make sense if he tried placing someone else at the scene. You know what I think that's about, Linda? I'll let you know what I think that's about. I never did the live to get into crap. I should have utilized you, Wolfie, when you were up here yesterday. So I think that was in reference to his dad. I told you, Wolfie, I told you. I think that was in reference to his dad. I think it's possible that he's just screwing with people and messing and playing a game by asking, has anyone else been arrested? But I'm more so leaning to, he was asking in reference to his dad, because talking about the ride home, Wolfie, the path that they took from Washington to Pennsylvania is a little bit odd. They went out of their way and made the trip longer than it needed to be. Now, that's Wolfie's area of expertise because I suck when it comes to directions, but she explained it really well, how they took a path that they did not need to take. And I think it's possible that Bryan may have disclosed things to his dad. Maybe not all, after the fact. And given that a SWAT team just entered their home through their windows, they came in like a freaking wrecking ball into that house, and he got arrested, he wouldn't have known if they also took his dad. So when he said, has anyone else been arrested? I do not think he was referring to an accomplice. I think he was referencing, it was my dad taken in too. Because at that point, you have to know he has a guilty conscience. He knows what he did. He would have known if he told his dad. He got stopped. They got stopped twice on the route back. And so in his mind, he may have asked that because he knows he relayed things to his dad. That's what I think. That's possible, Bob. That's possible. But also, in the body cam footage, you hear the dad say, like, oh, Linda, you hear the dad say how they've been driving for days, and then Bryan was like, a day, like, Wolfie has to explain. I don't think she'll be able to come up right now because she's at work, but she explains it very, very well because she knows directions much better than I do. Yeah, almost a full day. 2 hours out of their way. Exactly, Radine. He then came back and delivered the DoorDash and waited for BK to run out. And this is why the 9 minutes seems too short. He was in the house by 3:45. Hold on. I think I missed your first half. I think he went in just after the car turned around in the dead end of King at 3:28. Then accomplice took BK's burner phone. He used it for DoorDash delivery and drove the car around. He then came back and delivered the DoorDash and waited for Bryan to run out. This is why the 9 minutes. Well, can you come up, Wolfie, and explain it real quick? Because I don't want to butcher it. I don't think the mom knows anything. I do question the dad. I think even though they say that this trip was planned for Bryan to go back home, which I don't think is strange. What I think is strange is that it was just a week prior that they came out asking for the community's help regarding a white Hyundai Elantra. And then that is why Bryan did not want to leave the Elantra in Washington. And I think he was making his ride back to Pennsylvania. And I think he was going to leave the car in Pennsylvania. I don't think he was going to take the Elantra back. And something else that Wolfie pointed out, you guys, he got his car serviced when they got to Pennsylvania. Don't you think before a cross-country road trip, you would get your car serviced before it? and maybe after it too. But you would want to get your fluids and everything checked before you make that huge hike. I think he was initially supposed to fly. But for whatever reason, his dad flew out and they were making the cross-country trip back home. And he was going to leave that Elantra in Pennsylvania. And he was going to fly back. So his car would not be around. And after, but definitely before. Yeah. Okay, hold on. Let me put this up. Yeah, he was, Mickey. He was. He may have not every place reports to Carfax. That's true too. JD Wells, that is true. I think BK knew everything going on in the house since his specialty was digital cloud surveillance, and he knew when Xana placed order and when she was expecting. But let me show you guys again. Oh my God, Annalisa, I forgot all you cool cats and kittens. I missed the fudge out of you. Okay, this is all I'm saying. Your child lives 10 minutes away. And when I say this, please, you guys, I am not pointing the finger at his parents. I'm just stating an opinion. So don't jump down my throat. A brutal quadruple homicide occurs 10 minutes away from your child, Bryan. You are now going to be scared for your own child's life. You're going to be scared. Meaning they're going to be up to date and aware with what was going on with this case. More so than they would be if they didn't have a son who lived 10 minutes away. I'm not pointing at a 70-year-old man, Mickey. I'm speculating whether or not he may have told his dad something, and that is who he was referencing when saying, did anyone else get arrested? Who's pointing at him? Did I say he was guilty? Did I say he did anything wrong? It's called theorizing and speculating, but I most certainly don't point my finger at people and say, hey, you were guilty, or hey, you did this, because we don't know. So what I am saying is that a brutal quadruple homicide occurred 10 minutes away from where your son lives. You are going to be scared for your child. You are going to be aware of what was going on for your child. I struggle with that, 87. It happened 10 minutes away. I'm not saying he did, though, Mickey. That's what you're not understanding. I'm not saying he did. I'm saying, is it possible that this could have possibly happened? That is the entire point of having discussions, to say, is this possible or is that possible? There is a way that you can do it without pointing the finger and accusing someone. So that's possible, Veronica, too. Absolutely. So when they all of a sudden came out with the Hyundai, the white Elantra, did it not even pass his parents' mind in the slightest that their son drove that car? No, I don't accuse people either. I absolutely will question something, but there's a way to do it respectfully, and there's a difference. You don't take your feelings and go out of your way and harass people or leave comments. I say that all the time. That's all I'm saying, this Mel. You're telling me that it didn't at least cross their mind that I'm not saying that they would have jumped to their son did this, but it absolutely would have stood out, in my opinion. Right, Radine. Thank you, Lucy and Mile. That's all I'm saying is I was trying to circle back. But we're not, see, but that's the problem, Mickey. Don't take what people are doing on other channels and then apply it to my channel and chat, because that's not what happens here. So I don't really care what people are doing elsewhere and then you taking it and applying it as if it's happening here. I can only control my panel and my chat. And I know that we're not doing that here. But yes, when you ask me, do I think he had an accomplice? Because he asked, has anyone else been arrested? This was my explanation of what I think he possibly meant. That's not me pointing the finger and saying the dad knew, the dad's guilty. This is me theorizing what he meant when he said it. There's a difference. Bryan could have told his dad that he thought the SWAT shooting was related if it did cross his mind. That was interesting too. Like, why even mention that? I think that it was a week before that he left that they came out and asked the community for help with that car. You know what I mean? Like, I think Bryan wanted to get the car out of that area. And I think he was going to leave it in Pennsylvania. Really, Rich? Thank you, headphones. Like, because I'm well aware in other channels, they do jump and blame a lot of people. There's a lot of creators that owe all the jacks and hoodies and all the people apologies. We didn't do that here, though. So don't take shit that you've heard or what they're doing on other places and then hold my chat or me accountable for it. We're not doing that. It was strange, peas in a pod, right? It was strange that he mentioned that. But exactly, Wilhelm, exactly. I think so, always late. I think that's what he was going to do because it was too high of a risk to leave his car in that area. It seemed like a perfect opportunity. You know what, Dad? I'm going to drive the car down. I don't need a car. You know, like, who knows what he would have said? Oh, a college alert on the phone. That's, yep. Lacey, wait, how long have you been around? Did you just find NC? Yeah. Only backplates. I've always been ticketed on the interstate. Interesting. No, I think it is not plausible to think that his dad wasn't even aware of the Idaho murders. What I'm saying is his parents would have known because they would have been concerned for their child. If you found out there was a quadruple homicide 10 minutes away from where your child lived, you're going to be concerned for your child's safety. So don't tell me then all of a sudden when they came up asking for the Elantra, a white Elantra, I'm not saying that they were like, oh, it's Bryan. What I'm saying is I think that it's plausible that the thought crossed their mind that it was, well, Bryan drives that car. That's all I'm saying. The way you look at everything and not decide on it. Well, thank you, Linda. I try. I'm still learning and, there's always room to grow. But I do know I don't point my fingers at anybody with certainty. Oh, Tess. Thank you. I love you, Tess. He doesn't pay attention too much more than his yard. But J.D. Wells, their son lived there. Their son, that's true, Veronica. The year was wrong. That is true. I always am 87. Do older people watch the news? So you're saying not necessarily, but given that their son just moved across the country to a new place, an unfamiliar place, I absolutely think they would have known about the murders. People in different countries know about these murders. The parent of one of the kids from that college? No, I haven't, Lacey. No, I haven't. I'll have to check that out. I don't watch that many other channels, honestly. Right. His whole family was writing poems about every mass shooting and tragedy. They watch the news. They know that. And I'm like, again, I'm just trying to reiterate. I'm not saying that his parents had any involvement. I'm not. But I'm speculating based on the facts that we know, which is his dad did fly out. They did take this cross-country trip. They did go out of their way. For some reason, it may be a very plausible explanation. It may not be. And so when Bryan asked, has anyone else been arrested? It could have been in reference to his dad. If he even shared, that doesn't even mean he had to tell his dad the truth. It could have been something, who knows, something very small compared to the scope of things. But he would have asked because the SWAT just came literally through their windows and he was there with his parents. So it would make sense if he was expecting one of them to be arrested too, for whatever reason. That's what I'm saying, yeah. Right, Tess. It doesn't mean that they had to jump to the conclusion that he was involved versus, like, Bryan, did you get mixed up with the, like, did something happen? Like, anything. You never want to imagine that, that happened, your child is involved with that. I think he did say, hey, Dad, everyone in the world is looking for a car like mine and worried for my safety. Dad said, bring it home. Possibly, yeah. Or, you know what? Like, he's only been there since August, guys. This is the first time he's making his way back home. Is it possible he's like, yo, everything is so close to one another. I don't need the car. I live right off, like, it's too much each month, to make payments, I'm going to bring the car and drop it back off home. Who knows? Hello, Indianapolis. I know, Bob Costco. I know. Okay, so there is something in the affidavit that I am questioning, though. And I want to get your guys' feedback because we haven't spent too much time focusing on this specific part, but I want to get your guys' feedback about it. So, but before that, I wanted to clarify something that we said last night. Like I said, someone was in the comments. Hold on. Okay. Last night, when Wolfie was on panel, me and her speculated, is it possible that Xana was laying in her doorway type of? Because as you can see, the wording, it says, as Officer Smith and I entered, they went to the second floor. They said just before this room, there was a bathroom door on the south wall of the hallway, which is on the left. As I approached the room, I could see a body, later identified as Kernodle's, laying on the floor. Kernodle was deceased with wounds which appeared to have been caused by an edged weapon. I believe Xana was in her room. But what we were saying is it possible that she was like just basically in the doorway where 75% of her body could be in her room, but maybe her legs could even be possibly hanging out? Either way, the officer was able to see her body as he was walking down that hallway. Now, somebody was in the comments saying like, no, she was in the room. It doesn't say she was partially out of the room. It does not say either, and like we're not saying that she necessarily was partially out. All we were just speculating. Is it possible? But either way, she was in eye view, eye line, whatever, as you're walking down the hallway. Now, here's a picture of half of Xana's room. So all we were saying is that's the door behind them. Basically, where the pictures, the person who took the picture, that's where the bed would most likely be. So if that door was open and right on that wooden floor behind the two girls, that's most likely where her body was. Exactly this, Melma. You could see her as you approached. Now, speculating whether or not her feet may be hanging outside the door a little bit, the person's like, you got the facts of the affidavit wrong. No. It doesn't clarify if a portion of her feet maybe have extended out. Who knows, you know? Absolutely, Rich. Absolutely. Wilhelm Meister. Interesting. Yeah, Lucy Mela, exactly. The person taking the photo is the perspective of sitting on the foot of the bed. So, well, actually, Veronica, in the body cam footage, they said it happened the same morning. I'll have to double check, but I remember him saying, because the cop was like, really? I hadn't heard about that. And Bryan was like, no, it just happened this morning. So imagine if that door was open. Oh, I'll check it out, Ray Dean. If that door was open, I believe, as horrible as it is, just imagine the girl sitting right there laying down, kind of, but maybe in the opposite direction. But I just wanted to clarify, because the wording of Ethan, it says also in the room was a male. So they were stating that obviously Xana was in the room because they're saying Ethan was in the same room. Okay, that doesn't mean that her feet might not have been hanging out. You know what? Like it. All I know is that when the cops are approaching, walking down the hallway, she's in direct eye line. She is laying on that floor, possibly in the doorway area. I don't know, Lawnmower Man. I know, Chris K. It's hard. But one of the things that is interesting is that Ethan is the only person that they did not clarify where he was, other than in Xana's room. They explain Xana was laying on the floor. They explain that Kaylee and Maddie were sharing a bed. Ethan, they did not clarify where he was. Now, I believe he was in the bed, but they did not clarify. Also, why does the description of wounds differ? As you can see right here, it says Kernodle was deceased with wounds which appeared to have been caused by an edged weapon. Unlike Ethan's, where they say wounds later determined to be caused by sharp force injuries. In my opinion, it's because the injuries are very different. Not so much they were different weapons, but the injuries were different. Is that because Xana was more of a struggle, more of a fight, so the injuries were different versus Ethan, who could possibly have been sleeping, or vice versa? Will the jury have to look at all the pictures of the deceased? Yes. But it is interesting that they describe the injuries differently. Now, could it be, hey, Father Snugglenut, could it be could it have been multiple people writing the report and then collectively put together? Sure. But given that Ethan is the only one where they did not go into detail of where he was found, it stands out a little bit to me. I think there might be a little bit more to that. Oh, thank you, Wolfie. Okay. So 6:29 a.m. on December 15th is when WSU Alert Pullman tweeted, Pullman PD have resolved the situation adjacent to WSU Pullman campus and have declared all clear, resuming normal campus operations. And then this article was published 11:04 p.m. on December 15th. And it says, around 8:37 on Wednesday night, there was a man in his 30s who were threatening to kill his roommates. The two roommates were safely removed from the apartment. Okay, interesting. Thank you, Wolfie. No, so Jeanette, it would make more sense if that was Ethan's blood that was dripping from the exterior of the house. So if Xana, again, if you look at the wording, they said as they were approaching the room, they aren't even in the room yet. They can see Kernodle's body on the floor. That would make sense. And again, I know I don't want to use it as an example, but imagine the girl's just like laying back. That's how I imagine her body being, meaning you can see it before you even enter the room. Ethan, where the person is taking this photo from is the edge of the bed. So if Ethan was in that back right corner on the bed, blood pooling onto the floor, possibly between the bed and the wall, then gravity naturally would pull that blood down, leaking to the exterior of the home. It would most likely be Ethan's blood because Xana's body would have been over in this area. Well, always late. Anybody like me or us, anybody who was filing the case wouldn't be able to be picked for the jury anyway. So then I followed officer to the third floor. There was a dog. As I entered this bedroom, I could see two females in the single bed in the room. Both Gonsalves and Mogan were deceased with visible stab wounds. So again, all three scenarios have different wording for the injuries. Interesting, right? It's interesting that they differ. So with Xana, wounds which appeared to have been caused by an edged weapon. Ethan, wounds caused by sharp force injuries. Kaylee and Maddie, deceased with visible stab wounds. There may be nothing more to it, or maybe there is something more to it. I think it was all the same weapon, but I think the struggle is probably what is differing. Different type of wounds because of a struggle. Also, the sheath being invisible eyeline. It's almost like it was placed there. I don't think he did. But if it came off in the struggle, it's interesting that it would be kind of placed right next to the victim. Right, JD Wells. I've seen that too. I have. Okay. Then I'll show you. I'll kind of go in the order. Dylan and Bethany both made statements during interviews that indicated the occupants of the King Road residence were at home by 2 a.m. and asleep or at least in their rooms by approximately 4 a.m. This is with the exception of Kernodle, who received a DoorDash order at the residence at approximately 4 a.m. Law enforcement identified the DoorDash delivery driver who reported this information. Hi, Lori. Oh, Lori, I'll open your message. I'm sorry. I totally forgot until just now you told me to check. Okay. Notice this. Kernodle, who received a DoorDash order at approximately 4 a.m., she received it. She did not necessarily place the order. Also, it says the DoorDash delivery driver reported that information. The driver went to them and made them aware that he made a delivery. Now, in a completely separate paragraph is when they reference a forensic download of Xana's phone. A short time later, Dylan said she heard who she thought was Gonsalves say something to the effect of, "There's someone here." A review of records obtained from a forensic download of Kernodle's phone showed this could have also been Kernodle, as her cellular phone indicated she was likely awake and using the TikTok app at approximately 4:12 a.m. If Xana was the one who placed the DoorDash order, wouldn't that information have also been obtained in the forensic download of Kernodle's phone, that not only was she likely awake and scrolling through the TikTok app, but she had just placed a DoorDash delivery that had just arrived? You see what I'm saying? They're separate. They're separated. Wouldn't they have known that a DoorDash order was just made from that forensic download, yet it was only from the DoorDash driver coming forward that they were made aware? It's not always what's in the affidavit, it's what's not in there. This is not the golden ticket. This is not the gold mine. There is just enough in this affidavit to convince a judge to hold Bryan on these charges, but as little as possible. So it says she received it. It did not say she ordered it. But if she did order it, I would expect the DoorDash part to be included in this part. You know what I'm saying? It's considered received when the driver says so. So JD Wells, it's considered received. Remember earlier I said there's two options. You could either do a hand-to-hand delivery, or you could opt to leave it at the doorstep. If they did a hand-to-hand delivery, it's considered received once you hand it to the person. If you're doing a doorstep, it is considered received once the food makes the doorstep and they send you the photo to verify they left it there. Once that transaction is done, it's considered received. Pirate radio. They'll know specifically. They'll know from the DoorDash driver. But I'll tell you this. It leads me to believe that there was nothing nefarious happening when the DoorDash driver delivered the food, because he would have come forward if he saw something strange, right? So it seems like whatever the directions were, it went forward as expected. There was nothing unusual. But they will know all the details. They'll know through the app whether it said hand-to-hand delivery. They'll know from the driver, I handed it to this person at this door, or I left it at this step. They'll know everything. It is pirate radio. How do we know she didn't receive a pic? I'm in Texas and I use DoorDash. It's not that complicated. It's possible. That's what I'm saying, though, Tiffany, is that you would have expected the part, if Xana placed the order, you would expect that to be included right here in the part that's talking about a review of the forensic downloads of Xana's phone, because it would have been an open app running. She had just placed the order, but we don't. We see it up here in a separate paragraph, and all it states is that she received an order and they found out because the DoorDash delivery driver reported it to them. Maybe Xana did place the order, but it does not specify that. You know what I'm saying? That's the whole point of going over it, is it does not specify that she did indeed make the order. It just says she received it. So is it possible Bryan placed the order? Yeah, 87. Okay. So Dylan stated she looked out of her bedroom but did not see anything when she heard the comment about someone being in the house. Was that possibly someone saying someone's here because there's someone knocking on the DoorDash there? You know? Don't know. So 4:17 a.m. is when the distorted audio of what sounds like a voice or whimper, followed by a loud thud. A dog can also be heard barking numerous times at 4:17 a.m. The security camera is less than 50 feet. This is the security camera that we're talking about. It's from the neighbor's house right there. It's not a Ring doorbell. It is a CCTV camera. What I want to know is, does this camera record continuously, or does there have to be some type of activity that triggers the recording? You could also see in this image, it's a zoomed back photo, but you could see exactly up on that second floor door. That's where it is. But right in the back, you could see the Moscow house. And that is Xana's, like the siding of the house, that's Xana's room. So you could see the distance. That's also like the angle of the house is also what we're looking at, where the blood is dripping from. Yeah, Jeanette, yep. That's all we're saying, Pirate Radio, is that it's just possible. It does. The arrest affidavit does not clarify. Xana absolutely could have ordered it. But we also do know that they word things a very specific way, and they're only giving a little bit, as little as they can, to hold Bryan on these charges without giving the defense everything they got. So we just don't know for certain either way. But what I do know is that it would make a little bit more sense why Bryan would wait for 30 minutes outside of that house. If he was anticipating the DoorDash, it would make sense. And then he made entry as soon as the DoorDash guy got there. If he wasn't anticipating it, you could think that Indianapolis, maybe she did. If he wasn't anticipating the DoorDash, why would he wait 30 minutes outside, potential eyewitnesses, putting his car at the scene of the crime, putting himself at the scene of the crime, and then once this unknown vehicle approaches, making you aware that at least one person, possibly more in the house, are awake? Why would he choose that exact moment to make entry? But I want to get to the part that I have a question with for you guys. Dylan stated that she opened her door for the third time after she heard crying. Okay. So it says the homicides occurred between 4 and 4:25 a.m., but it's a much smaller window than that because, let me get the part up. You see his car (326) westbound on Steiner Avenue. And then it arrived at 3:29. Okay. It arrived at 3:29 and it left at 4:20. But you can see his car entering a fourth time at approximately 4:04 a.m. So you can't even start the window of the murders at 4:04 a.m. because you need to account the time it would take for him to get off camera, park, get out of his vehicle, make entry, and then when he's seen again at 4:20, booking it, you need to leave time for him to leave the house, get in the car, and then be seen on the camera. So it's such a short window, which is really bothersome. I don't know, Jeanette. And I feel like a lot of people think just because I'm putting the possible theory out there means that I think that this is what happened versus I'm just exploring all avenues. It would make more sense, but there's still holes if I go with that. I don't understand why Bryan would wait out there for that long and then choose the moment he has confirmation that there is activity to go in the house. That is very strange to me. So it would make more sense if he anticipated it, but I can't figure out why he would do that. That's what I heard, Jeanette. It was a cat taking a pee. They've been maybe, and he was as well. There may have been a car driving by, maybe a dog barking. What if Bryan, placed the order to blame the DoorDash for the murders? That is chilling to think. That's what we were saying, Donna. Did he place the order to use it as a possible distraction? Was he trying to get activity to be happening at one door so he was able to slide in another door? Did he intercept the DoorDash and pose himself as the delivery? Did he just try to put somebody else at the scene of the crime so they would be looking in his direction? Yeah, you guys have to remember, it's basically 10 minutes max, really, the window of time. So that's like 2.5 minutes per victim and leaving time for a struggle. That's why I eliminate. I know some people think, well, maybe his sheath was there because he started to unbuckle his pants. There was some attempt at SA. I don't think so. There was too short of a window of time. I'm even struggling with how much happened in that window of time, let alone adding stuff. Absolutely. They know all of it, E. They know all of it. I don't think it was the DoorDash guy who lived near Bryan. If I'm not mistaken, it was the private ride share. If somebody else in the chat knows, they could clarify. One of them did. Well, it wouldn't be Bryan at all, Judy, right? It wouldn't be Bryan himself stating it. Now that the affidavit and this information does come out, it's the defense attorney's job to cause reasonable doubt. So it's not Bryan who's going to be like, oh, well, there was DoorDash there, the same way that Bryan now knows because we know, right? It's public information. So they could turn around and be like, there was somebody else at the scene of the crime at the time of the murders. Now, if he said something about the DoorDash before that became public knowledge, that's different. Okay, so he can be seen at 4:04 a.m., stopping, turning around in front of the 500 Queen Road, apartment number 52, then driving back westbound on King Road. Was he kind of circling back and forth, anticipating this driver to come? I don't know, just speculating. Then it's seen departing at approximately 4:20 a.m. at a high rate of speed. Okay, yeah. So it wasn't the DoorDash delivery guy who lived next to Bryan. It was the private rideshare. Possibly a voice for hope. But ready, if we go down that road again, if he was waiting for 30 minutes for the lights to go out, don't you think once a vehicle approaches this DoorDash, we don't know if he knew it was DoorDash, but an unknown vehicle approaches and now someone's answering the door, that would have spooked him, right? He would have been like, oh, fuck that. Someone's awake. You know, there's activity going on. But instead, that's the exact moment he decides to gain entry. That's the part that doesn't really fit together. It would fit better if he was always anticipating the DoorDash. But granted, there's a lot of pieces to the puzzle that we don't have. In the matter, he was like directly behind semis in a weird attempt to conceal himself from the cameras and possibly pirate radio taking back roads, right? Oh, yes, Freedom Believer. It's absolutely heartbreaking with Athena. It seems like that, a voice for hope. Again, everything about this was so high risk. If it was more about just a killing versus these victims specifically, there were plenty of single occupant apartments where he could have not been seen, not worried about time, not worried about witnesses, not worrying about getaway, but he chose this house for a reason. Now, back in August, he moves to Washington, across country, away from his family. It's the first time he's in this area. It should be new. You don't know how to get places. You don't know people. You're not familiar. Yet already in August is when he received his first citation, which was 5 minutes down the road from the King residence. And we do know from this affidavit, he was there at least 12 times. So it's almost as if he knew that these were going to be his victims, or at least one, from the moment he arrived in Washington. I believe Bryan was watching the Grub Truck live feed, saw them at the truck based on previous events, so they are headed home. Possibly. Yeah, possibly. Accused, possibly. What time did the cops have the other kids pulled over? It was around 2:45 a.m. to 3:15 that the cops were writing those other kids' citations. Yes, Lawnmower Man. That's what I'm saying. That's what we were trying to show. So 2:45 was the latest window. You could have placed the order. Right after that is when Bryan is documented shutting his phone off and leaving his apartment. Did he arrive early, 3:29? If he had a burner phone, he would have been getting alerts exactly where the DoorDash driver was in real time. It'll tell you the driver just arrived at the restaurant picking up your food. The driver is en route to the residence, and he waited. No, he moved there in August. Yes, a voice for hope. A lot of people think he was parked back there. As far as I know, he was there since August. But if you guys have anything else that says something different, please definitely show me. Possibly accused. That's the point. Like, but if he didn't anticipate the DoorDash, wouldn't that normally have spooked him? Why would he wait around for 30 minutes and then finally there's activity at the house and he's like, "Ooh, this is my moment to go in." It makes no sense. But to be fair, a lot of it doesn't make sense. Okay. So here's, let me get to the part that I have questions and I want to hear your guys' feedback. Wolfie, what page is it on? Was it 13, 15? So it says that he went back. He was there like 12 times. 12 times, guys. But there was another part where it says that his phone pinged. Thanks, Wolfie. His phone pinged, but they don't believe him to be there, which is weird. So I want to go over that part with you guys, and I want to hear what you guys think, because we haven't really happened. Okay. So right here, it says investigators found that the 8458 phone did connect to a cell phone tower that provides service to Moscow on November 14th, 2022. But investigators do not believe the 8458 phone was in Moscow on that date. The 8458 phone has not connected to any towers that provide service to Moscow since that date. So, what do you guys think about that? It pinged in Moscow, but we don't believe. Now, you have to remember, hey, Daylana, you have to remember this affidavit was written before they had his device and stuff. I do, Akasha. I use Wolfie for her. She has like a photographic memory. She's really good with that stuff. You too, Delana. Ow. Oh my God. Sorry. Ow, I just kicked my end table in my shin. Ow. We speculated, is it possible out of any of those 12 times did he leave like a spy camera, like, or which isn't as ridiculous as it seems. You could buy them anywhere and you could just pop them on the tree and stuff. People put them inside showers. They're everywhere. And then which part of Voice for Hope? The part that I slammed my shin. Yeah, I'll repeat the phone ping. Sure. Hi, Lisa Lee. See the purpose of a burner phone because now they can retrieve them for. Hold on. Let me repeat this first and then I'll read your comment. Okay. Investigators found that the 8458 phone did connect to a cell phone tower that provides service to Moscow on November 14th, 2022, the next day. But investigators do not believe the 8458 phone was in Moscow on that date. The 8458 phone has not connected to any towers that provide service to Moscow since that date. So basically, the day after the murders on the 14th, his phone connected to Moscow towers, but they don't believe he was there. Delana. If he was waiting for the driver, it would have been safer to park and wait instead of driving around circling. What if he was nervous that he was going to miss it, right? Even though he may have added the delivery instructions to, don't know, a Voice for Hope, but what we do know is Ethan did. And we speculated in the beginning if the Apple Watch came into play. But was he possibly kind of going back and forth because he didn't want to? I don't know. Again, see, there's holes in every theory. Phone there, but not him, and footage was found to show this. So his phone would have connected, but Bryan wasn't there. What circumstances would Bryan's phone ping in Moscow, but Bryan himself in person wasn't there. Would an Apple Watch ping like phone? I don't know. I don't have an Apple Watch. You do. Phone repair? Like, did he drop his phone off to like potentially get it wiped or something? Left somewhere? Walmart and shopping to the crime scene? I'll have to look. Like, for them to be able to say, hey, his phone pinged here, but we don't think he was here, they have to know he was somewhere else. He drove somewhere else on the 14th. His phone randomly bounced off a tower providing service to Moscow, but was not actually in Moscow. That's good. That's the question of Voice for Hope. That's actually a good theory. This Mel, that he may have been en route somewhere and his phone may have pinged, but he wasn't actually there. I like that. Headphones. It hurt. Anybody knows me, I'm Italian and I talk with my hands. Now you know I also talk with my legs too. They just move and stuff. But even if he had a burner phone and used an alias, why run the risk of having the delivery driver say to Xana, hey, Bob sent this, or hey, Greg sent this? It would cause too much infusion. He didn't necessarily have to do this, Pirate Radio. So I don't know if you were here in the beginning. We went through, we tried to recreate the same circumstances from the night that it was ordered. So we ordered it on a Saturday night at the same time to that house. You have two options. First of all, only two options were available. It would have been either Jack in the Box or Taco Bell. Those are the only, that's true, Pirate Radio. Those are the only two options that would have been able to deliver DoorDash at that time of night to the King Road residents. Both locations are right across the street from one another. Okay? Hold on one second. Okay. So you have two options. You could either, one, sorry, I just slid myself out of there. So you have two options. One, hand-to-hand delivery, where someone's going to go to the door, or you have the option, leave at the doorstep, where there is no contact. Okay? You also have an option for specific delivery instructions, where you could ask them to go to drop it off at a specific place or call a specific number or something like that. So he may have asked to knock on this door, to try to get activity, people drawn to that front area while he makes a backway entrance. He may have asked to leave it on the doorstep. Did he intercept the food after being left on the doorstep and disguised himself as the delivery because he didn't want to actually be seen going to the restaurants? So instead he ordered it from a burner account to drop it off. He picked it up once it was left on the doorstep and then himself knocked on the door type of thing. Was he trying to put somebody else at the place and scene of the crime? I don't know. But the only reason we kind of went into it, Pirate Radio, is because of the wording of the affidavit, of them saying that Xana received the DoorDash order, and they know this because the DoorDash driver gave them that information. And it was separated from the forensic download of Xana's phone, which said she was likely awake and scrolling TikTok. If they got that information because Xana ordered it herself, you would expect it to be included in the forensic download, yet it isn't. It's separated. So we are speculating whether or not it's possible she didn't order it. And in ways, it would make more sense knowing Bryan's movements, but in other ways, it doesn't make sense. Maybe he knew they had a doorbell camera. Yeah. Possibly a voice for hope. That's the only thing that would really make more sense, is that he wanted this high risk. Oh, they absolutely would have, Psycho. And that's the thing. So again, they have all these details. They have all these details. But what I do know is the transaction with the DoorDash guy must have went smooth. It was completed. Now, that doesn't mean he had to have hand-to-hand contact. Again, whoever ordered it could have opted for it to be left at the doorstep. All we know is that it was received, it went through, so whatever was requested occurred. Is that what, when Dylan said she heard what she thought was Kaylee saying, someone's here, was that Xana or possibly someone else saying someone's here because someone's knocking on the door as DoorDash? Bryan wouldn't want to take the risk of going and picking up the food himself, right? So instead, he gets a delivery guy to drop the food off to the doorstep. He's kind of, you see him on camera circling, going back and forth because he's waiting. He's waiting to make sure the guy maybe didn't not follow direction and left the food on the front doorstep. It was a confusing house. We all know that. Then once the DoorDash arrived, did he intercept it and kind of knock on the door, disguising himself to be a delivery driver, and then gained entry? Yes. So if he had a burner phone, they'd have to trace that burner phone to him. So if they will have the information through the DoorDash app, but it depends on the account. He could have created a burner account. Again, I don't have DoorDash, but if I download the app right now and it says put in your name and your first name, last name, I don't have to use my real information. Payment method, you don't have to use your debit card or credit card. You could use a prepaid Visa gift card, or if you had a Taco Bell or DoorDash gift card, you could use that as your payment option. So the only way that they would be able to trace a burner phone back is taking the burner phone's information and determining where that burner phone was being sold, like at a 7-Eleven or at this Walmart, then determining the time and place it was sold, and then narrowing down if they could spot him on potential CCTV footage or something like that, making the purchase. Yeah. Lucy and Milo, yes. That's what I'm saying, Miss Mel. That's all I'm saying is it just makes more sense. I'm not like 100%, oh yeah, he sent the DoorDash, but it would at least make sense why he waited for 30 minutes out there. Oh, thank you, Radine. Show your support for MJ. Hit the light. Thank you. Well, even if they were armed, Psycho, they were in their sleep, you know? They were defenseless. Is an issue? Maybe it is. I haven't read the affidavit, but I don't think it is. I think that it's possible that there's more to it, or not, you know? That's the part of it that's strange. If it was to Xana, but from him, he had no idea who would open the door. The fact that's the great point, Willem. It is to Xana, but why would he use Xana's name? That's one of the things that we do sit here and speculate. Like, why would he send it to Xana? Now, if he only thought There were 4 in the house because, again, he couldn't have known Ethan was going to sleep there. Did he know Kaylee was there? Did he know that that was Kaylee's new car? Kaylee made her way back and stayed the weekend to show Maddie her new car. So if you're thinking that Maddie was the target, did he put Xana's name to potentially distract her on the second floor while he made his way up? I don't know. I'm getting frustrated. Clearly you don't know me. I just talk with passion. Did he stalk Ethan and Xana from the party? Well, he was pinged at home. That's the thing, Lawnmower Man. According to this affidavit, he was still at his apartment. So it's not like, because before we found out it was Bryan, I speculated whether or not he was watching from afar and he watched them enter. But this was still when they said that the time window of the deaths were 3 to 4 a.m. But now we know he was still home. He was still pinged at home. So it's not like he knew how many people were inside. Again, such a high risk. Everything about the case is such a high risk. I wouldn't think so, Lawnmower Man, because if he stole the DoorDash delivery guy's phone, then the DoorDash most likely would have never made its way. You know what I mean? Everything, Jeanette, everything is bold. It doesn't make sense. Read, thank you, Radine. Read Annie Ruler comment about burner phone. Okay, hold on. Did I miss it? I'm scrolling up. Annie Ruler? Oh, here it is. And welcome, Annie. Maybe his cyber skills turned on a burner phone to the same number, even though left actual phone home. Maybe his cyber skills turned on a burner phone to the same number, even though... Well, you know what's interesting? Well, you know, I don't even know if it would work like that. I don't think it would work like that, actually. Jeanette. Turn on burner phone to the same number. You mean like directed? The reason I'd say I don't think so is because I don't think he would. What would be the purpose of using a burner phone then if you're going to sync your actual number up to it, you know? No, not as far as we know, Danilo. I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing your name wrong. Not as far as we know. I know a lot of people say, oh, this looks like him, but no. Well, I have heard people speculate whether drugs were involved, and we know he has the history. The way I see it is there hasn't been anything. Oh, Danny. Okay. So there hasn't been anything substantial to point in the direction of drugs were a factor in this crime. We do know that Bryan has a history of drugs, but you're going to have something to go off of. The same thing with an accomplice. We could sit here and all day and say, hey, it would make a lot more sense if an accomplice was involved, right? Maybe there was somebody else driving the car. Maybe Bryan was driving the car and someone else killed. Yeah, but if we're going to go down that road, you have to have some type of evidence that points in that direction. And so far, there has been zero evidence that points in the direction that, one, somebody else was involved, or two, drugs were a factor in this crime. We have dual SIM card phones. I agree. Change how allegedly a tower pings without real phone there. Right, Annie. Now, I do think that's a good question, Bread to Kill You All. That's a really, really good question. I'm going to have to look at that. Because is it possible that he was just en route and passing and your phone is just pinging to the towers, but that doesn't actually make you in Moscow. He did make a lot of, honestly, I saw someone say the other day, and I was like, you know what? It would make more sense. But what if he genuinely just didn't care? That's something that, I mean, I'm not leaning towards. I don't think anybody would want to just like, I don't give a shit. But if he did not care, that is why all of this stuff does not make sense. The risk, because it wasn't about getting away. He just wanted the notoriety and he wanted to do that. We know from his posts and the visuals to know he didn't feel a connection. There was a real disconnect and he was disassociating. And so he wouldn't have those emotions. Well, I'm going to be leaving my family behind. And because we know from his own posts and his own words that he didn't have that connection. Okay, up to 20 miles. So up to 20 miles from the phone towers. Wow, that's large. That's a lot. The tower provides service to one area. It could be up to a mountain or across a lake. Doesn't have to be in the middle of the triangle to ping out one tower. Right, a voice for hope. And that's the hard part, is it's trying to make sense of the nonsensical. But everything about the case, Jeanette, it's so weird. So weird. Are we able to figure out like the specific Moscow towers and how far of a range they have? I'm sure it's available. I'll have to. Let me see if I can Google it. One second. I feel like he was afraid of a real drug addict possibly still using. Would he pass a background check? Well, just because he's a drug addict doesn't mean he's not going to pass a background check. There's a lot of people who have struggled with addiction and they do perfectly fine nowadays. Hold on.
University of Idaho murder suspect Bryan may have left behind a calling card to show he was at the scene of the crime in Moscow, Idaho. According to experts, the brutality of the crime suggests that he possibly has killed before. In a Dr. Phil special on Friday, experts speculated that he purposefully left an empty knife sheath in the room where the students were murdered. Koberger has been charged with 4 counts of first-degree murder and felony burglary in the gruesome quadruple homicide. A preliminary status hearing has been set for June 26th.
That's what I said at Tune the Night Owl. So, listen, I'm not planning on going out to commit any type of crime like this, but being that I'm so invested in the true crime community, I feel like we could all agree, we know the do's and don'ts, at least the basic do's and don'ts. Don't do this, don't do this, because we've examined so many cases before. And it's like he made such rookie mistakes. The only thing that would make sense in one theory is that he just did not care. He did not care. Why did he walk away when Dylan saw him? He did not care. I mean, I don't know how likely it is, but is it possible? Sure. Yeah, and I don't think he would be able to get a TA job if he was actively using. But just because you were an addict doesn't necessarily mean anything has to come up in your background check. That just means, were you an addict and then got arrested or something like that? I don't know, Radine. I didn't know what it was when I started to play it. Oh, really, Jeanette? Interesting. Adrenaline and tunnel vision. And well, that's what my working theory was, Akasha, at first. I thought he made his way in. He went upstairs. He was killing Kaylee and Maddie. I don't know who was the target. I just believe the target was upstairs because the 3rd floor is the only floor that did not have direct access to outside. There would have been no plausible reason to go up to the 3rd floor if it was just about killing. And that is what Dylan stated she heard around 4 a.m., what she thought was Kaylee and Murphy playing, but it was really the act of Bryan killing Kaylee and Maddie. Some thumping occurred and the dog barking. He made his way back down. He was going to head out the sliding back doors, but him and Xana crossed paths. And that is when Xana screamed, "Someone's here." That is what Dylan states she heard. Someone screamed, "There's someone here." She ran back towards her room to try to alert Ethan. He chased her. A struggle occurred. That is when Ethan woke up. And that is when the neighboring audio is picking up the loud thuds, whimperings, crying, and Murphy barking. At that point, Xana and Ethan, because he could not have anticipated Ethan being there, it brought too much activity. It brought too much noise. Now there's a high risk that cops may have already been called, and his adrenaline was pumping, and he had to get out and get out fast. So he did see Dylan, in my opinion, just like Dylan saw him. But at that point, he thought cops may have already been on their way. And so he needed to get out and get out fast. And that is why he went speeding out at 4:20, took over an hour to get back home. I think he was discarding of a couple of things, not necessarily the knife. He got back home. Then hours upon hours are passing. He's anticipating even a potential knock at his door, but let alone maybe he's listening to the police scanner. He has the news on. He's anticipating to hear about something happening at this house, but nothing. Hours and hours pass until finally his curiosity got enough to him to where he got back in the car and drove back around 9 a.m. to do a drive-by to see what is going on at the house. Why isn't there any activity? But something else that is interesting is that he shut the phone off for another 3 hours that night of the 13th. Around 5:30 to 8:30 p.m., he shut his phone off. It just disconnected from the service for 3 hours. Okay, hold on. As for Kohberger's cell phone pings, which put him in the Moscow area on the date of the killings and in the weeks beforehand, Wilson offered an explanation for that too. Moscow isn't so far away from Washington State University, so it would be natural that there would be some of those towers that might ping. There are just 8 miles between Washington State University's campus in Pullman, where Kohberger studied, and Moscow, Idaho, where the murders took place. There will be a defense, Wilson said. During a recent episode of the podcast, Chief Public Defender of Monroe County, Pennsylvania, Jason LaBar, said the evidence is not so clear-cut. The Pennsylvania Public Defender's comment on the knife sheath, which was found next to one of the victims, was shrugged off by LaBar as touch or transfer DNA, which would mean that it could remain on the sheath for an indefinite period of time if undisturbed. That's one way of attacking that type of evidence that doesn't put him at the scene of the crime the night out, just that he merely touched that knife sheath at some point in time. LaBar also said police use cell phone tower pings rather than GPS location to put him at the scene 12 times before the quadruple homicides. If it was GPS location coordinates, you're talking down to a meter as to where Bryan Kohberger was at the time of the crimes, he said. Whereas a cell phone tower ping is that you're within a radius of that tower up to 20 miles. Interesting. So again, the GPS coordinates is very different from the cell phone tower ping. A GPS coordinate is going to put you literally within a meter versus the cell phone tower pings that's going to put you within a radius of up to 20 miles. You think so, Paula? It is far, Danny, right? So that would make a little bit more sense of why they're saying his phone pinged in Moscow, but we don't believe he was there. Well, they're going to turn that around on the defense. How are you going to prove he was there any of the 12 other times? You're saying he went to the residence 12 times, or at least near the residence 12 times before the murders. Well, how can you prove those 12 times differ from this one time you're saying you don't think he was actually in Moscow? You think they have more pinpoint? We got to hope. But where did he go for the 3 hours he disconnected his phone that night. I think the knife sheath left behind means either he got hurried and scurried, or someone else placed it there, not left on purpose. Well, we went through this quite a lot, Bread to Kill You All. It would have been highly unlikely for that sheath to get pulled off of his belt if he was wearing it the correct way, which leads us to believe that the sheath was never on the belt. But that would be really silly. That would be really silly if he was manually holding the sheath or it was in his pocket or something like that. Again, a really rookie mistake. Or did he intentionally leave the sheath? That's why only a single source of DNA was found. Was he trying to throw them off? I don't know. I always questioned whether he left. Before I found out it was Bryan, I thought, did he leave something behind? Did he make a marking with the blood or something like that? Because he was into the notoriety. He likes the serial killers. Like, was he trying to make his mark? So I question, was the sheath that? Was that his marking? But I don't know. Why did he use his own vehicle? No, it's a great point. So that's what I'm saying. Like, listen, I've always followed true crime my whole life. I'm not planning on going out and committing a murder, but I could tell you what, if I did, I definitely would know some of the do's and don'ts from everything I've learned from these crimes that I've studied. You'd think the same with Bryan. You're so fascinated with the true crime. You're in this field. You study this type of stuff. You would think to not bring your own car, again, which circles me back around to he waited outside for 30 minutes. I played it, Wolfie. I'll listen one more time.
University of Idaho murder suspect Bryan Kohberger may have left behind a calling card to show he was at the scene of the crime in Moscow, Idaho. According to experts, the brutality of the crime suggests that he possibly has killed before. In a Dr. Phil special on Friday, experts speculated that he purposefully left an empty knife sheath in the room where the students were murdered. Kohberger has been charged with 4 counts of first-degree murder and felony burglary in the gruesome quadruple homicide. A preliminary
not this one? Oh, this one. Okay.
Breaking news, a criminologist says he believes Bryan Kohberger left the casing of the knife at the scene as part of an elaborate plan, and his extradition attorney says that the evidence is not clear-cut. A criminologist stated that he believes Bryan Kohberger left the casing of the knife at the scene of the crime as part of an elaborate plan. He says part of this plan may be using it to avoid double jeopardy. Double jeopardy law is what prevents someone from being charged twice in the same crime. In regards to the DNA found on the knife casing left at the home that matched Bryan Kohberger's father 99.9%, he says that it could have been transferred from person to person, and he believes the defense may bring this up in trial. While speaking to the morning show host, he said, quote, "Your DNA is on me. I could go wherever I wanted to go in the next hour, and your DNA would be where I go." Furthermore, Kohberger's extradition attorney says that the evidence is not clear-cut. He also stated that the DNA found on the knife casing could be touch or transfer DNA. He said, quote, "which would mean that it could remain on the sheath for an indefinite period of time if undisturbed." He said, quote, "that's one way of attacking that type of evidence that doesn't put him at the scene of the crime the night out, just that he merely touched the sheath at some point in time." In regards to the over 12 cell phone tower pings from Kohberger, he said, quote, "if it was GPS location coordinates, you're talking down to the meter as to where Bryan Kohberger was at the time of these crimes. Whereas cell phone tower pings is that you're within a radius of that tower up to 20 miles. He goes on to state, obviously, Kohberger lives within 20 miles of the crime. I'll keep you guys updated. What do you think? Drop in the comments.
Okay, that girl talks way too fast for me to for me to absorb the information she's saying, but I think I understand what she's trying to say. I don't know. I feel like you have to have a level of I don't give a fudge in you to have to do something like this. She does. Listen, I have ADD, so when she talks that fast and you have like the news music playing behind her, it all just merges together. He is arrogant pushing the envelope. It's like he wanted to get caught so he could poke enough. That's what I'm thinking. Like, I don't know what I'm thinking. Honestly, it depends on the day. Depends on the hour, actually. No matter what angle I try to speculate, there's always something that doesn't fit together. No theory so far have I found that it's like, yep, this fits perfectly. Okay, drive safe. Yeah, that's different, Danny. Right. But that's why it's curious when they say single source of DNA. Are you talking about skin cell? Are you talking about touch DNA? Are you talking about blood? I struggle with that too, Donna D. I do. Which security cameras? I'm parked to keep knives so he could retrieve later. I struggle, and I've always struggled, that he didn't at least nick himself. A lot of times with stabbings of this magnitude, your hand will slip and you will nick yourself, especially now that there's 4 people. There could have possibly been a struggle. We know at least there was defensive wounds. The likelihood that he didn't even nick himself, and I know it has the guard on it. I do. I don't know. What do you guys think? You think you could get away with a quadruple murder like that and not even nick yourself? I don't know. Pirate Radio. See, this is what I said before Bryan was found. If he was just lurking outside, you could see right into the home at nighttime, right in. So originally when they said 3 to 4 a.m. time window, I was like, oh, the guy probably watched them arrive home, knew exactly where they were. But now we know that's not the case. He was still home. And he didn't arrive to 3:29. And they say by 4 a.m., everybody was in their rooms and likely sleeping, according to Dylan. Would the lights have been on? Would he have been able to determine who was there? Absolutely, Danny. We don't know much at all. And yeah, the shopping's better. But then they said, actually, the shopping in Washington, Pullman, is better than I don't know. That's such a bad excuse. What's it called? You hit it right on. My thoughts change hour to hour, not two as an innocent, but well, I just hope they have a lot more. And yeah, a lot of people are going crazy with the vans. Oh, look, Dylan wore the vans. You guys, with the shoe footprint, it's not like they have a specific size and style depending on the what is it called? Like the pattern on the bottom of the shoe. I think he probably did cut himself, but that evidence is mingled with other blood evidence. The DNA on the sheath was single source, but they'll be able to determine it. So let's say he cut himself on the second victim. Well, the DNA from the first victim and the second victim mixed with his is going to be on the third victim and the fourth victim. And they'll also be able to determine the order of the kills from that too. Oh, I've gone shopping in the middle of the night. Vans are unique to wear of shoe. That's different, like tread marks. Well, what I'm saying, did you make a spelling error? Because I didn't really understand what you said, but they'll be able to determine. It's not like Dylan's shoe is going to be the same size of this Vans, right? Pirate Radio. It's damn COVID. That Moderna, man. Really, really good to tie it to him. Like how he walks may wear the bottom in a specific way. Right. Really, Brock? Well, I really am bred to kill you all, innocent until proven guilty. And nowadays it is guilty until proven innocent. But oh, okay. Everyone's shoe wears differently over time. Ooh, that's a good point. Yeah. But I'm not going to sit here and say, hey, you're fucking, sorry, but you're guilty and nothing's going to change my mind. Nope. I'm keeping Yes, everyone's gait is different too. Gait is something I looked into a lot during the Watts case with the NK and the body cam footage and but and probably stepped in blood. But if he stepped in blood, we do know that they didn't come around to the shoe print till the second sweep of the house, which if it was blood, it should have been visible to the eye. Should it not have been? Hold on, let me find that part. It said during the second sweep. This is the phone data. Honestly, they gave us so much more in this arrested affidavit than I ever expected. Okay. During the processing of the crime scene, investigators found a latent shoe print. This was located during the second processing of the crime scene by the ISP forensic team by first using a presumptive blood test and then amino black, a protein stain that detects the presence of cellular material. The detective shoe print showed a diamond-shaped pattern similar to the pattern of a Vans-type shoe sole just outside the door of Dylan's bedroom, located on the second floor. This is consistent with Dylan's statement regarding the suspect's path of travel. That's what we were speculating, Pirate Radio, for the longest time, because I was shocked that there was no visible blood path even outside the house. Like, think about how many cameras swarmed the residence on the 13th. Like, as bam, there were photos everywhere. I was really surprised that we didn't even see any type of blood transfer on the sliding door or on the patio or even like the dirt area, like nothing. So people were speculating, were they wearing overalls or shoe booties and then took it off? Well, apparently not. That's possible, Amber. Really, Jeanette? Ooh, interesting. No, you can't, Pirate Radio. Not with technology. Okay, Wolfie. I fully thought he wore booties. He would tarp the inside of their... Listen, there's something they have at his apartment. That's why that search warrant is sealed. They did find him, but it was his own brother that gave him up, Pirate Radio. It was his own brother. I just watched, actually, a whole documentary on Ted Kaczynski the other day. Hi, Heather Ann. So, the question is, and we heard that the car was clean. I know we saw in the body cam footage the exterior looked dirty, but that's because it was snowing and the stuff like that. Yes, exactly. 2 in the night owl. Yes. And so, but the interior apparently was immaculate. But I think they're going to find DNA residue down the drains at his apartment. Oh, definitely, Delana. Definitely. Yes, exactly, KM. And to say it, I didn't put too much weight into them saying, hey, releasing this affidavit is going to put the public and the officers at a security risk, like it's a threat for them. I think, hi, KK May, I think they did not want to release anything additional than they have to. They want to keep it in their pocket. So when they said that releasing that information is going to put everyone at risk, what they mean is anything that could possibly hinder the investigation, that could potentially lead Bryan to being released, is a risk to the public and officers because he potentially committed these quadruple murders, and that's a risk. But I think they're going between the technology. I think they're going to have a lot of Google searches. I don't think it's going to be like a Letitia Stout type of Google search. That was insane. I'll never forget reading her Google searches, but I think he washed up there. Oh, you're good, Aaron. Yeah. I think they're going to have a lot of searches. And I think they're going to have some type of DNA that made its way back to his apartment. There are Pirate Radio. Do you know a lot about the government stuff? You seem like you do, and I'm intrigued. Yeah, Jeanette, he's been studying for how to do it for a long time. But that's also where I kind of like hit a brick wall again. He should know better. The mistakes he made. That's what it's like, Danny. So he definitely got sloppy and cocky. But Danny, do you think this was his first kill? I think it was his first kill. That's what they're going to argue, 87. That's a great point. They're going to argue that the searches have to do with his schoolwork and his studies and his research. If he planted the sheath on purpose, I don't think he would wash up at home. It took him over an hour to get home. Meanwhile, it was only a 10-minute drive. It's about stopping and figuring out where did he go. But he also disconnected from the network for 3 hours. Where's that part? From 5:30 to 8:30, he disconnected. What did he do during those hours? Let me find that. He went, because at this point, people knew. Well, I don't know if people knew that to the extent of what happened, but the house was, a bunch of cops were there. They knew what was going on. 247. Okay. So where did he go between this 3-hour window of time? I'll find it. 1 second. Okay. Additional analysis of records for the phone indicated that between approximately 5:32 and 5:36 p.m., the 8458 phone utilized cellular resources that provide coverage to Johnson, Idaho. The 8458 phone then stops reporting to the network from approximately 5:36 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. That is consistent with the 8458 phone being in the area that the 8458 phone traveled in the hours immediately following the suspected time the homicides occurred. So what did he do during those 3 hours, and what did he ditch? Yeah, no, I was talking about later on the 13th, Wolfie. I don't think... Hey, Paula. Hi, Kellyanne. Bread to kill you all. I don't think an accomplice was involved. I mean, it got heated in here a little while ago, but when he asked if anyone else had been arrested, 1, he could have just been messing and playing a game, or 2, he was referring to possibly his dad because they swatted in the home. That's where he was just arrested from. Did he say something to his dad? Did something along those lines? Yeah, I don't believe an accomplice, a voice for hope. Possibly Rodley. He might, Jeanette, he might. Ooh, I think they will find dog hairs at his apartment. Interesting, Donna. You can know the rules and laws and still get caught. Think about it, shady law enforcement officers. That's true, Delana. Yeah, Pirate Radio. He was at his home until he seen two, what was it, Wolfie? 2:50 something, that's when he shuts his cell phone off and heads to the house. He was at his apartment all the way up until then. No, absolutely not, KM. Bryan did not call in to YouTube. Exactly, yeah. 2:47. I think during this I think initially when he first left the Moscow house, he was being impulsive and he was getting rid of what he could. And then I think during this 3-hour window, once he calmed down and maybe the adrenaline rush, like kind of, this is when I think he hid the knife. That's true too. He didn't have any friends. Think about this. There hasn't been any friends or significant others that have stepped forward so far. I don't think that's the case of Voice for Hope. Personally, I don't think so. I'm seeing something now. They're saying that the vet lived 7 minutes from Bryan, and there are reports from family and friends that they hung out together. And they're saying that the vet drove a white Elantra also. And that, I don't know. I'll have to vet this before I continue to read because I don't know if it's credible. It's possible. I don't know, Paul. It's a post that was just posted, but I don't want to repeat it without knowing if it's legit. I don't know. It's interesting. That's all I'm saying. I agree, Amy. Just make you think twice. But all right, guys, I got to hop off for now, but I appreciate every single one of you being here. I love hearing your guys' opinions and theories. All opinions are always welcome as long as you keep it respectful. That's all I ever ask. And I appreciate you guys hearing me out. I will be on again tomorrow to focus on the defense and will they have enough to convict Bryan. Granted, we do not have all the information. This is just the arrest affidavit, but I want to hear people kind of go back and forth. I want one side who will make the argument in defense of Bryan, given what we have so far, and the alternative, people who are trying to say, no, this is enough evidence and argue with what we have so far. I think it's really interesting. So I appreciate you guys all being here, and I hope to see you guys tomorrow. Have a lovely, lovely Tuesday. Good night.